Yeah, it's Mountain Peeps, 787 here today to go back to talking about Pokebilities yet again, and this time it will be about one specific Pokemon, this time being Cinccino. Now, my OCD is acting up, so I gotta go to expanded other metagames just to put this back to the, just to put this to Pokeabilities so my OCD doesn't go even more crazy. But yeah, Cinccino. Now, most people, when they first hear about the Pokebilities metagame, think Clefable, they think Lantern getting 2 immunities with both Water Absorb and Volt Absorb. They think Bronzong. And some people think Pokemon like, some people think more offensive threats, like Conkeldurr, like Crocodile, like Salamence, like Gyarados. And very few people think about Cinccino at first glance until they remember its combination of abilities. Now, you see the first ability here, Cute Charm, which doesn't do much, I will admit that, but then you see Technician and Skill Link, which sounds like a really amazing ability, and, sounds like a really amazing combination of abilities. But a Pokemon does have to have moves to support both Technician and Skill Link. Well, as we know, Cinccino gets 4 different moves to take advantage of Skill Link, and all of these can take advantage of Technician as well, due to the fact that all these moves, each one of their hits registers differently, which is why you see Bullet Seed as 25 power, because it always assumes just one hit of the move, and one single hit is 25 power, and you have that multiplied by 1.5 on each hit with Technician. So instead of 125 power on Rock Blast, Tail Slap, or Bullet Seed, you would normally do 25 times 5, which gets 125, but since you add the Technician bonus, it's 37.5 times 5, and that is a 62.5 power bonus, which is absolutely massive. And Triple Axel? Now, Triple Axel is different because it is only 3 hits, but each hit grows in power, first hit being 20 power, second being 40, and third being 60. So, Technician raises the power of all those hits as well. So, it goes from 20 plus 40 plus 60, which is 120, to 30 plus 60 plus 90, which is 180. So each of these moves get monumentally more powerful, especially Tail Slap, considering that that is normal type, which does grant it stab from Cinccino. Now, let's also not forget that Cinccino also has some really nice utility moves, like Knock Off, like U-Turn, Thunder Wave, if you want to predict a switch, and it has really solid speed. Then you come to the issue with its attack. Cinccino is meant to hit extremely hard in this metagame, and while yes, items can support it, and the extremely high power of its base moves, along with solid accuracy, can really help it. But at the same time, a base 95 attack, no matter what items you slap on or the high base power of the moves, a lot of times just is barely too short to cut it. And along with that, Cinccino has a few pretty major issues. One of them being 4 move slot syndrome, because Thunder Wave is the only one of the 7 moves I mentioned that that most people would be fine on passing, because Cinccino is meant to be all-out offensive. So, okay, Tail Slap is obvious. Then you have to choose the rest of the 3 moves. You have to choose 3 of Rock Blast, Bullet Seed, Triple Axel, U-Turn, and Knockoff. All which can be really useful for their own different reasons, and it can be extremely frustrating to choose between all that, which really gives Cinccino a lot of issues at times. Sometimes you go up against a Alola Marowak and you drop Rock Blast for a U-turn. Suddenly, you don't have anything to hit the Alolan Marowak for super effective damage, and your team just gets swept by it. Or, if you drop U-turn, suddenly you don't have a way to damage that Exeggutor and the Sun heavily on switch-in. If you drop... okay, that was a bad example. But, like, U-turn is always useful because, let's say they switch out into another Pokemon. You suddenly give up that momentum that you could have gotten if you used U-turn by not even having U-turn on your moveset. So, 4-move slot syndrome is a pretty bad issue for Cinccino. And another one is contact punishment. Now, if you don't know what contact punishment is, I wouldn't be surprised, but let me sum it up to you. There are moves in Pokemon that are separated into different types, different types of attacks, but not the literal types like fighting and normal. Different categories, I should say. Types are divided into different categories based on what they do. There's physical moves, like Aqua Tail, there's special moves, like Focus Blast, and there are status moves that don't do any immediate damage most of the time. Most of the time don't do any damage, and sometimes do damage, but not just immediately when they're used. They're not direct attacks, like Toxic, and one that just doesn't do damage in general, Encore. Now, a lot of these, that would be the best way to describe the category split, but there's also another important category that people often forget: contact and non-contact. Now, the physical hits like Aqua Tail, like Tail Slap, yes, those are contact. But that does not necessarily mean all physical moves are contact. For instance, Razor Leaf is a physical move. It is not a contact move. And Draining Kiss is a special move. It is not a contact move. So, Draining Kiss is a contact move, even though it's a special move. So, being physical or special for a move in and of itself does not determine whether a move is a contact move or not. But why does it infect Cinccino so much? Well, with Skill Link, all of its attacks always hit 5 times. Or 3 times, depending on what you're using between Tail Slap, Bullet Seed, Rock Blast, or Triple Axel. And as a result, since how common Cinccino is in the Pokebilities metagame, there have been certain threats or underrated Pokemon that have risen up to try to counter it. And some of those Pokemon are these ones. Most notably, Ferrothorn pretty much completely walls Cinccino. Even if it does decide to run Knockoff, Knockoff doesn't really help it too much, unless you're getting rid of like a Rocky Helmet, or if you're getting rid of its recovery with leftovers. So yeah, since those are the only 2 items it will ever have, I guess it will be helpful, but it won't be the best to knock it off still, because it will still wall every single move you have. Then there are other Pokemon that have other extremely useful abilities, like Heatran, another complete wall to Cinccino. The only move that it does not resist the only moves are Knockoff and Rock Blast. And Rock Blast, well, when you look at Heatran's stats, it may look a bit mediocre when you look at the defenses and HP at the start, but if you've seen any high-level game, you know that Heatran is absolutely amazing. A lot of it because it's bulk. And while you see that a lot of these Pokemon can be dealt with by a lot of the tools that Cinccino has, Trotagon and Garchomp can be dealt with by Triple Axel. The Flame Body Pokemon minus Heatran can be dealt with by Rock Blast. Zapdos can be dealt with by Rock Blast. Amoonguss and Eldegoss can be dealt with by Triple Axel. There are still a few Pokemon like Togedemaru that, Togedemaru of all things, surprisingly, can completely wall Cinccino, barring just one or two moves, and that is another reason why 4 move slot syndrome is so difficult to overcome at times with Cinccino, because you want ways to overcome the possible contact punishment. Because let's say that a Zapdos with max Fizdef, max HP, bold nature switches in on a tail slap. Each hit, keep in mind you're hitting 5 times, has a 30% chance of paralyzing you. And if you're going to hit 5 times, that chance of being paralyzed is extremely high, which can cause an issue, because any form of status is not helpful for Cinccino. So you may be thinking, oh, just run protective pads on it. Okay, I can definitely see where you're coming from. There's a reason why protective pads is one of the one of the better items on Cinccino. But then you also have to take into account, oh, it's going to be switching out and coming in quite a lot because it's an offensive threat that can't really take too many hits, so it'll be coming in on hazards quite a lot, none of which is it immune to, so you'll also want heavy-duty boots. Okay, but then you lose a lot of the power that could come with some of your moves, so you may want Choice Band. But that locks you into a move, so you may want Life Orb. But that causes more recoil damage on top of the possibility of contact punishment such as Iron Barbs or Rough Skin or just any Rocky Helmet Pokemon. Any Pokemon that may carry some ability like Static. And that is another huge issue of Cinccino. It can only run one item, and because Cinccino has subpar attack, even with its insanely powerful moves, having to choose between pads, boots, band, life orb, having so many items that it may really need at times, and having to choose only one is a huge issue. Now, yes, Cinccino definitely is a top threat in the Pokebilities metagame, and it is my firm belief that it always will be. But at the same time, for how much it is used, I do not think that its usage stats reflect its viability in the best or in the most accurate way. Cinccino is what I call a noob bait Pokemon. It looks absolutely amazing on the surface with the tools it has, but people who first start playing the metagame often just look at a Pokemon's strengths and they don't see until they actually start playing the metagame that the Pokemon has some extreme flaws, which is why over the course of the past few years, I have started using Cinccino much less. Not because it's a bad Pokemon, not at all. Cinccino, like I already said, is still a top tier Pokemon. It's just, it can be extremely difficult to use, and it is often meant for specific teams, especially with all the contact punishment going around in the metagame with how Pokemon like Heatran, Moltres, or Zapdos are still able to keep their other amazing abilities like Flash Fire and Pressure, and even some Pokemon like Chandelure don't have to choose between three okay abilities anymore, because Chandelure has a Flash Fire, which is amazing because it gives it a third immunity, Flame Body for contact punishment, and Infiltrator to go through any subs or screens. And then you have Pokemon that don't have to give up an even better ability just to run their contact punishing abilities, like Amoonguss, who now has both Effect Spore and Regenerator. And because of the increase of great Pokemon that are able to run their contact punishing abilities simply because they don't have to choose between that ability and another one, it makes it much more difficult to fit Cinccino on different teams, especially with a lot of Pokemon that don't even have the contact punishing abilities, like Corviknight, like Quagsire, like Reuniclus, running Rocky Helmet, because the Rocky Helmet is just like Iron Barbs as an ability, except it does even more damage from a contact move. And this is why people often find out really quickly that Cinccino can be really difficult to use. You have to find the teams where it fits in right, and you have to use it properly. By no means is Cinccino bad, but you have to find what teams it fits on right, and you have to be able to play smart when using the Pokemon. You can't just throw out tail slaps willy-nilly, as much as that may just feel absolutely amazing, because a lot of these Pokemon are extremely popular in the metagame, especially Heatran. Heatran is the main one, but Moltres and Zapdos also have pretty high usage. Ferrothorn is still great as it is in the normal metagame, especially because it also has anticipation, so it can scout out for fire or fighting moves on certain Pokemon. So, with all this said, Cinccino is still amazing, but I would not put it top 10 in Pokebilities. I'm not even sure if I would put it top 15 with all of its issues. I'd definitely put it at least top 25, maybe top 20. But at the end of the day, it has too many flaws, the way it down so much, being 4 move slot syndrome, its mediocre attack, extremely middling bulk, and single item syndrome that really hold it back. Anyways, guys, this has been Typhlosion 77. Hope you enjoyed, and I'm out of the house. Bye!